Let's talk about the furry comic The Sprawl. Set in the distant future, a massive spaceship full of refugees makes a desperate journey to find a new, habitable planet to live on. What they find is Tartarus, a slow-turning, molten planet covered with poisonous gas, massive radiation spikes, and a half-shattered landscape that is covered with volcanic activity across half the damn globe. There are nights that last for months at a time under constant pouring rain, the air only partly breathable, sometimes, for short periods of time without a ventilator, and its winters hit negative 220°C. Quite frankly, this is the worst environment imaginable. But the endless void of space is not going to let these people go any further, so they touch down and spend the next 900 years wrangling the planet under their control. Generations go by of slow, meticulous terraforming projects and a ragtag city of broken buildings, bad wiring, and constant power outages pops up around the ship itself. Welcome to the Sprawl. The city is building itself through sheer automation, but the AI is actually not smart enough to allocate resource for its power needs. So everyone is constantly on the receiving end of complete power outages and brownouts. That seems like a massive oversight, but if the city ran perfectly, I suppose it wouldn't be very interesting, would it? As you might expect, the whole place isn't so much run by a government as it is run by the biggest mega corporations that provide clean air, clean food, and safe lodging from the absolute hellscape outside the city itself. It's a big planet, and there's only one place to live. Anyway, this setup gives rise to a group of people called the Surveyors. Basically, anyone brave enough to go out into the wilds and look for resources. Precious metals, ice that can be used for water, etc., etc. Anything and everything. The thing is, the planet is such a harsh environment that most everyone never comes back. Even 900 years after the touchdown and creation of the city. Like, no joke, the comic goes out of its way to tell us that most of these poor bastards never come back. It's basically a death sentence out there. The Sprawl itself absolutely oozes with style, grease, graffiti, neon lights, and broken down electronics. It's a nightmarish lean-to city full of super rich and super poor people. Fertile ground for good storytelling, I gotta say. I am super impressed with the sheer scale and personality that this setting has. It's very, very impressive. We start our story by following a surveyor group as they're sent out to see what happened to an encampment of researchers, only to find everyone dead and to meet the same fate themselves. And that's not a spoiler, it happens right away. Turns out the research encampment came across some sort of Lovecraftian superweapon buried in the ice. A glowing orb that, if you handle it or get too close to it, will compel you to murder everyone around you. No joke, it overrides your mind and makes you into a murderous killing machine. Simply called the Orb. The Orb is pretty much the only main character that the comic has to offer, and that's also not a joke. Everyone around this thing dies. Everyone. Oh, it has a container. One person might get away with putting it back, but the moment you open it and you are exposed to it for too long, it's over for you. This is unfortunately the comic's biggest problem. It doesn't actually have a cast of main characters. What it does have is an endless conga line of unsuspecting assholes being led into the meat grinder. No one is safe. Do not get attached to anyone. They're all gonna die. Often in horrific, body-twisting, nightmare-inducing ways. The only constant in the story from chapter to chapter is the orb itself. The mega corporations running the Sprawl have heard of it and they want it. Various characters try to study it, some with some success, but everyone that comes into direct contact with it dies. I gotta say, it's pretty hard to get invested in a story with a rotating wheel of characters that are all doomed from the start. As soon as someone starts figuring things out or getting close to the truth, they die or they murder everyone around them, and the narrative sort of resets all over again with the next person that claims the orb. What is the orb? What does it do? Why does it do that? Who made it? Why did they make it? Why did they leave it behind on Tartarus? Why not destroy it? It's clearly not something you want to have around or in anyone else's hands. Tartarus was obviously populated, or at least visited, before the refugee ship and the creation of the Sprawl. But who were they? Was this planet some sort of interstellar wartime outpost leaving behind a nasty weapon like that? Unfortunately, the plot sort of meanders while it raises more questions than it answers. The Sprawl itself is a phenomenal setting full of mystery and intrigue, but the orb kills everyone that goes near it, so the story doesn't really progress beyond new person found, took, or got exposed to orb. This is how they die. But, to be fair, in the most recent pages of the comic, we are told what the orb actually is and its function, but again, no one in the story itself is able to take advantage of that information because, oops, they're already dead. Obviously, I don't want to spoil too much for you, but you can see why I call the orb a character, even though it's just an object. It drives the plot, and it's the only constant, because no one that comes even close to it or its mysteries is long for this world. I know, I'm talking in circles. Anyway, what else? The Sprawl, as you might imagine, is an adult comic. Not only is there a lot of explicit blood and gore, but there's a lot of random nudity in this comic too. Like, this artist knows how to draw bare-chested women, and by God, they crammed as many as they could into the story. And don't get me wrong, I like boobs, but it does get a little distracting when characters just don't put clothes on, or have entire conversations with their subordinates while naked, or wander out into the frozen landscape of Tartarus and never zip up their fucking jackets. I can see what you're doing there, comic artist, but you gotta be better than that. With all the body horror, blood, and death in this story, it's kind of hard to stop and enjoy even the best titties. I'm just saying. I'm not saying they shouldn't be there, but it does give me a little bit of mood whiplash when people are being torn apart, stabbed, shot, having their eyes ripped out, pulled under the orb's influence, and so on and so forth, only for a character that we've known for a little while to just be naked for a while. Like, it does give me the same feeling as an old grindhouse horror film. You know, the scene where the girl in the horror movie goes and takes a shower just so you can see her naked. It has nothing to do with the plot, it's just boobs for boobs' sake. Even though she gets stabbed by the killer like 45 minutes into the movie, it's that kind of feeling. Do not get attached to any of these boobies. They're all gonna die. You have been warned. That's all. Anyway, the Sprawl does sort of suffer from its body count, as no one is left alive to put all the pieces of the mystery together and solve the puzzle that is the orb. The only entity that seems to have a chance of doing this is the mega corporations that are running the Sprawl, because they're not just one person, but a super rich group of people that will happily throw thugs and scientists at the thing to see what makes it tick. And like I said, yes, the comic does tell us what the orb is and what it's meant for, but there are no good guys around to see to its destruction or proper use. It's like a plague. There's no stopping it. You just have to ride it out and hopefully get rid of it while there are still a few people left alive on the whole fucking planet. Spoilers. So, in conclusion, should you read the Sprawl? Well, it's not to my taste, but maybe to yours. I can't deny that the artwork is phenomenal. I can't deny that we were given a mystery and given the answers in due time. That's something a lot of comics fail at. But I also can't deny that this comic is Game of Thrones levels of everyone is gonna die. Maybe that's the reason I didn't like it very much. The Sprawl itself is an incredible setting with some great storytelling, but it's not arranged in such a way that I enjoyed it personally. It's too dark, it's too grim, too hopeless, too gritty and grimy. There's nothing to hope for. There's no one left alive to root for. There are no answers or plot structures to lean on where you think there might be a good outcome here. It's just, this is what's happening. There are no goals. Enjoy the blood-soaked ride. And hey, it's a great, hard sci-fi comic. You might enjoy it for what it is, but I didn't have a lot of fun reading it. Maybe you can have a look and decide for yourself on this one. I will very hesitantly say, check it out.